Hi, Brian.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, just fine.
Nice.
We'll see how many people join. We'll just give them a couple of minutes. I will enjoy my afternoon coffee.
All right.
It's a little early. It's usually 4 o'clock that I have my coffee.
Wait, you don't have coffees in the morning? Like when you wake up, you have it at 4?
Tea in the morning.
Ah, all right.
Oh, do you hear that?
I do. Wait, what's that?
It's a cuckoo clock,
Is that an alarm?
and it's telling me that it's 3 o'clock.
Ah, it's time for the live video chat.
We will we'll get started. We'll get people caught up as we move along. I think the folks out there probably know how to use Instagram a lot better than I do. I believe there's a little question mark icon down at the bottom of the screen. And if you have a question, just hit that, fire off a question, and we will do our very best to respond appropriately. I'm Brian Stone. I'm an associate professor in the Division of Industrial Design at NUS. I am entering a year and a half here in the program. Before that, I taught at Ohio State University in the United States. It's one of the biggest universities in the US. I was there for 20 years. I am the co-organizer of the Mode Summit, which is an international conference on motion design. And I also published a book called The Theory and Practice of Motion Design. I have had a terrific time at NUSDID since I've been here. And I'll introduce you to my student colleague, Clarissa. And Clarissa is in her second year in the program. Clarissa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Clarissa. I'm in my second year here in DID. Before DID, I was pursuing my high school degree in Indonesia. So I am an international student here. But yeah, before DID, I didn't really have any design background. I just knew that I loved drawing. Yeah, I guess that's an introduction about me.
All right, and what courses are you taking now?
I'm taking 2 design platforms this semester. Also taking computing for design. So we do learn computing here in DID as well. I'm also taking Chinese. Yeah.
Okay, so I am assuming from the smile on your face that you're enjoying those classes.
Yes, I am enjoying those classes very much.
Okay, well, very good. I guess the goal for our next 45 minutes or so is to give our viewers as much information as they can, as we can provide them, so they can make an informed decision on, number one, do they want to attend the National University of Singapore, but more importantly, is design and DID the right place for them? And I will start with saying that design is a fascinating, intriguing, ever-changing, creative profession. It is hard to get bored working in the space of design as a professional. It's even harder to get bored as a student because there's so many areas that we cover, from product design and industrial design to interaction design and user experience, service design and social innovation, motion design, furniture design, whatever you can think of. We have some expertise resident that can take you through the process of solving problems through those communication channels. Our program, I would say, is a bit unique in that our first year is centered on a series of fundamentals, foundational concepts that you'll need to practice design across many different application areas. And then when we go into the second and third year, we go into what's called our platform sequence. So the platform sequence is that our tutors will offer a particular subject. The students bid on the courses that they want to take, and then those courses are arranged vertically. And what I mean by that is you will have second year and third year students mixed together in the same studio. And eventually what happens is that every student has a slightly different academic experience depending on the platforms that they take. And then to the fourth year, there's a comprehensive year-long thesis project. And I invite you all to go to the NUS DID website. There's a grad show website that has all the projects from last year's cohort. I'm sure you take a look at that. You'll get very excited about those things. So let me take a quick peek here. I see a couple of questions that are coming in. And I will confess to you that there are some questions that are better served to sending to the Office of Admissions, but we'll try to answer the questions as best we can. Clarissa, you have anything you want to share from the student's perspective that might get our viewers excited about applying?
I think I agree with what you said earlier, Brian, that design is, it's never boring. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think being in design, you're always faced with many different projects and not necessarily from the same industry. So you're always, kind of changing and trying to learn something new from different kind of projects. So I think that's what's very interesting and very exciting about design. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go to a question I want both of us to answer. The question is, where do you draw your creative inspiration from? And I'll start.
Okay.
I draw my creative inspiration from looking at day-to-day activities, trying to be a bit more observant of why things are organized or designed the way they are. When I go to the grocery store, I spend far too much time looking at package designs for food products that I'm not going to buy. But I'm very curious about how the graphics are organized, what's the physical packaging configuration. I look at physical space to see how people are being guided to move around in a particular retail store or a mall or a city. I draw inspiration from music, from theater, from dance, and lots of things in our natural environment. So the color space in trees, I look at birds. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to pull in as many influences into my head and then trying to make some transfers from, like, that really was an effective way to communicate something in that space. How can I transfer it into the project that I'm working on? So Clarissa, how about you?
Okay, for me, I think a bit similar to what you said. I also take inspiration from things that I see in my daily life. But apart from that, I also really like looking at student projects or projects done by, I don't know, design agencies or different schools. I think that kind of, I don't know, gets my mind wondering about, like, oh, what was the design process, or what was the thinking behind this particular project, or, why did someone create things this way? Yeah, I also like going to Pinterest. I think that's that's something that most of us students, we like to go through Pinterest and just try to see pictures that kind of, spark our creativity. Yeah.
So
but
do you have
sorry?
Do you have a Pinterest board yourself?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm an avid user of Pinterest.
So it's do you take things that you see and you like and you pin it on your own board?
Yep, I do. Yes.
That's a good idea, because you always have a source where you can look for things and say, yeah, that's a really nice color palette, motor scooter, whatever it ends up being. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a question, and let's see. It says, I'm not going to try the username because some of the usernames are a little abstract. But the question is, do we need to be good at drawing? And what would you all look for in a portfolio? So there's two questions here. It depends on your approach to drawing. there is drawing to, let's say, communicate a particular product concept, and then there's drawing, which is more sort of centered on rendering an idea that is much closer to a final solution. I have a rather strong opinion on this, which is drawing and sketching are two different things. So I would say first you need to be good at sketching. And sketching is about externalizing your thinking. Like, I have an idea, let me put it on paper and at least get it into a form that I can communicate it with one of my colleagues, and I can get feedback, and then we can get things moving forward. Drawing, on the other hand, that's a skill that gets developed over time. And you might not be that good at drawing now, but as you pursue it more and more and more, you'll get better at it. So at this point, I wouldn't concern myself too much with being excellent at drawing. The more important part is being excellent at communicating your ideas. Now, that leads to your second question, which is, what do we look for in a portfolio? It is just that. It is, has the student identified a problem, and have they come up with some type of creative solution that solves that problem? And keeping in mind that that is from a human perspective, so there should be some feasibility components to it, but more so, I think there should be desirability components to it. So in other words, is this something that people would be delighted to use? Is it something that's easy to use? Is it transformative in the way that they were doing something in the past, and if you have this product or experience, they're doing it a different and more efficient way in the future? So we're looking for things in the portfolio that do indeed show that you have the ability to conceptualize solutions in many different forms. Clarissa, what was in your portfolio?
Okay, what was in my portfolio? Actually, it was a lot of my drawings, because I did, I really like to draw. And what I had before the ID was all my sketches. I really like to draw portraits of people. So that was what I showed during the admissions interview. But I think, do we need to be good at drawing? I don't think so, because I think that drawing is a skill that you can foster. And in DID, we are given one of the mods, they teach us how to draw, so don't need to worry about that. I think it's more about how you tackle problems that's more special. Yeah, I think that's my take on that.
Okay, let me see if I have another question out here. This question says, I am an amateur artist from India. I have always been interested in the creative space, but that's not in the form of a question. So I will say, yeah, this is probably something that is a good area for you to pursue. If you like, I will say, solving problems on behalf of others and using your artistic skills to do so, this is probably something that is worth considering for you.
I think there's a second part to this question that was shared in the ID story.
You can see it?
Yeah. No, from the previous question just now, the one where you said it was a sentence. Yeah, so I think the person asked, like, how did that translate in ID, like the ability to draw? Yeah. I think I can share a bit. For me, how art and drawing helped me in DID is, firstly, it fostered my curiosity and my desire to always be creating something. So initially with drawing, I always wanted to create paintings and stuff, but now it has kind of transformed into the desire to create design solutions for people. Another thing is that it helped me develop my sense of aesthetic. So kind of like how I always used to see pictures and reference images and trying to find inspiration for my drawings. Yeah, just seeing those images that helped me develop a better sense of judgment of what I think is aesthetic and what I think is not. but more directly to ID, like what Brian has mentioned earlier, is it allowed me to express my ideas as well. So like how drawing is like translating what I have in my mind into a pen and paper, so to communicate with other people. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Let me go to another question. I'm going to direct this question to you.
Okay.
It says, what is a pivotal moment in your life that made you decide to pursue industrial design?
Okay. For me, I've always known that I wanted to go into art and design since like secondary school. But what area of design, that was still unclear to me then. I first wanted to pursue product design. But you know, I was also from a science background, so when I was in high school, I was studying in the science stream, and I thought that industrial design was a good balance between, you know, science and art, and that was why I chose ID. I'm not sure whether that's a pivotal moment, but that was the reasoning of why I chose the ID at last. Yeah.
I went to you first because I can't remember that far back on what was the pivotal moment that made me decide, but I do have a bit of recall, which was my original interest came as a photographer. And you know, it's just how you observe the world, how you make compositions, how you do editing at the time in the darkroom. And then I actually went to pursue photography as an area of study. But one of my professors had introduced me to the integration of photography with graphic communication and typography. And so that sort of manifests into, let's say, magazine covers, that there's image and type or image and communication. So then I shifted into at the time what was graphic design, at least that's what we referred to it as. And then over the many years, you know, your career evolves into different areas in the space of design. So it goes back to my original point, you know, which is if you have these creative interests and you can get drawn into the discipline through photography or drawing or painting or sculpture and model making, or even mechanical engineering and some other areas, and then you start to see where the relevant connections are, and then you're in the fold and you're doing industrial design. Okay, I have another question. Oh, this will be a good one. I'm still a little confused about the difference between industrial design and product design. I guess you're gonna. You want me to answer that?
I mean, I can, but you can start.
Oh, no, I'm very anxious to hear from you. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Okay, I'll try my best to answer. Okay, to me, I think industrial design encompasses a lot more than just product design. So like in DID here, we learn things like service design or experience design, even graphic design. So that's how industrial design is different from product design in a sense. We also learn about design thinking. So that's kind of like a problem solving method. Yeah, but product design is a subset of industrial design, I would say. Yeah.
All right, and I'm going to say something that will likely get me in trouble because this is a recorded session. I don't necessarily think that the prefix industrial is going to be relevant moving forward. I'm just going to call it design right now and say design is this broad umbrella topic. And under design, you can design products, as you said. And products can be defined as physical or tangible products, but they can also be virtual products. So the people that work at Facebook and Instagram, they regard Instagram as a product, even though it's electronic and it's virtual. So coming back to the issue, think about industrial design as a much broader umbrella in which you can do products, you can develop services, you can craft experiences, you can build communication, and all of these things that eventually have intersection going laterally. But think about it like that. The difficulty, and I know where the source of confusion is that in its history, industrial was about industrialized products, products that you could mass produce. So it started with that label of industrial design, but I think over time, that's really not relevant any longer. Okay, I can't wait to get all the questions from my colleagues about, what are you saying? But that's the wonderful thing about what we're doing here, right? Because you get to hear from myself, and then next week you can hear from one of the other professors, and then a couple of days later somebody else. So I would suggest to pose this question if you join in one of our other sessions and see if you get a similar response or you get a different response. Mm-hmm. The bottom line is you'll have a lot of fun doing whatever you decide to do if it's in the space of design. Okay, let's keep it going. This is a very, very busy person here. Having heard that DID might combine with engineering, how does that affect the course? Okay, so there is a proposal on the table that the School of Design and Environment will be a little more closely and a little more formally integrated with the College of Engineering. What that simply means is you can work laterally if you choose to. If you choose to. It's not necessarily a requirement that you take a lot of engineering courses. There will be some modules that we will ask you to take, but for instance, if you are working in the space of, let's say, product design or maybe sort of automotive design, what have you, and there's engineering components that are relevant to your area of study, yes, it makes sense for you to do so. And then conversely, we expect some engineering students to participate into some of the classes that we have in DID. So the simple answer is it doesn't affect our courses so much. What it does is it provides more opportunities for our designers, our design students, to work in other areas without the sort of restrictions of like, how do I get into these classes? They're going to be open to you, and vice versa. Those engineering students, our course modules will be open to them.
I didn't know about that, by the way. I didn't know the idea was gonna be closer with engineering.
Well, I was tap dancing around that answer because it's just been a lot of talk behind it, but there's not been an official statement. But I would say it's perhaps the worst kept secret in Singapore.
Okay.
Let me see if I can determine what we have here. Was hoping to know how that would translate into ID. I think that's the second part of another question.
Yeah, I think this was the second part to the question previously. Yeah.
Okay, then this one is, oh, can you see these questions, Clarissa?
No, I can see when you pull it up, but I can't see the list of questions.
All right, the question is, what do you teach and what's your favorite thing about teaching? All right, so go ahead, Clarissa. What's your favorite thing about teaching?
Me? I think that question was perfect for you.
Okay, then I'll start. That's a really easy question to answer. My favorite thing about teaching is not only working with young people, but seeing the transformation in those young people. So I meet a student in year one, and I see what they're doing, and I see their skill level and their knowledge about design. And then I work with that student in their second year, maybe their third, and then their fourth year. They are usually different people. They are smarter, more mature, more worldly. They really establish a certain value system around how they want to use their gift as a creative person. So for instance, I have a young lady and she's very much into social innovation. the type of work that she wants to do it in service of people that are underserved. And that's very different. We have other students and they want to work in the area of commerce, right? They want to go and work for a big corporation. And all that's, you know, that one is not better than the other, but the thing is they know so much more and they're focused on what they really want to do as a professional designer. And you see like how they can handle themselves and how they make presentations and how they tell stories. And that's the best part of it. And because that growth and transformation, it happens in a very, very short period of time. And I'll give you all a quick example. When I met Clarissa a year ago, she barely talked.
Yeah, I know. I'm a very quiet student.
She barely talked. And then this year, we had a presentation to one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And Clarissa made a presentation to this group of designers. It must have been 30 people there. And I'm going to speculate that even a year ago, you might not have been equipped to do that.
I strongly agree with that. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, now there is a second part. You're teaching too, but we don't call it that.
Me?
You are, yes, you, okay. Clarissa. You're teaching too, but we don't call it that. What we call it as in the studio, in our classrooms, you are collaborating with your peers. Mm-hmm. And you're knowledge sharing. All right, mm-hmm. So you do something and one of your classmates goes, oh, wow, that's really interesting. How did you do that? You don't go, oh, I'm not telling you. That's my business. You know, what you do is you say, oh, I do it like this and I follow this process. So there's a lot of sharing that happens in the studio. So there's a lot of what I'll call peer-to-peer learning, all right, which is just another way to say teaching. And that is, I think, the beauty of the structure of how our classrooms are organized, right? So there's a lot of discussion with myself and maybe with a teaching assistant in the process of learning, but then there's a lot of peer-to-peer discussion that helps in the process of learning. So yes, you have been doing it.
Well, if you look at it that way, I guess that's true.
Okay, so my folks out there, if you have more questions for us, hit that little question icon down there in the lower right, and we'll do our very best to answer. Clarissa, I see a lot of like heart shapes coming up from your screen.
Yes, I think it's people liking the session. But yes, I can't see who's liking. Yeah.
Thinking you have a lot of fans out there. That's very good.
They could be your fans. I mean, that's true though.
All right, here I see my camera. Let's see here. All right, this is a good question. I'm going to go to you first.
Oh,
Hi, Brian and Clarissa. What are some values you hold as a designer, and how do you incorporate it in your work?
Okay. What value do I hold? I think in design, it's important to always remember that you're designing for other people, and so it's important to know who you're designing for. So say whether you're designing for children or an elderly audience. So you know, just always keeping in mind their best interest and what kind of design would really transform their lives. So I think that is something that I try to always remember when I'm designing something. Yes. Did that answer?
That's a fantastic but very difficult question to answer.
Yes.
And so when we talk about values, I first think about professional projects that I am excited about working on, and then there are some professional projects that I'm not interested in working on at all. Now, I should be clear. I'm in a position now that I can turn down work. I can say, no, I'm not the best fit for that. So for instance, in the incarceration of Black men, I'm not interested in working on anything like that. Or things that are about big tobacco. I'm not interested in working on things like that. So I have sort of some social things that I hold very important to myself. And somebody could approach me or my firm and say, we'd like you to do this. I'm going to pass on those kinds of projects. Now, that's not as easy to do when you are just starting out. But I think if you hold very strong convictions to certain things, you should not be afraid to say, this is not something that I can get behind. Now, you had said something else, Clarissa, about making sure that you are putting yourself in the position of the person that you're designing for. So I'd say one of the biggest values that we try to impart to all of our students is the issue of empathy and being an empath. So really to put yourself in a situation where you can fully understand what that person's needs and expectations are, all right, and then really work on behalf of that person. All right, so, and I think that is something that really accelerates one's ability to design something that delights somebody else. It's easy for us to design something that we like. It's a little more challenging to design something that others are going to like. And that's the approach that I would take, a much more empathetic approach. Anything else on values that we should talk about?
I'm not very sure because values is a very broad term, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say that we see this become much more concrete when our students do their fourth-year thesis project. That students that have said, look, I'm very interested in nutrition and wellness. All right, and all of a sudden they start to think about a thesis topic around that particular space. Or you said earlier, the elderly. And we had a young lady being focused on how do you help the elderly in a fast-moving cashless society. Cashless society, you know, that's for young people. All right, we're like, yeah, I'll take my phone and do this and do that. But then we have this huge population that seems to be left behind in that whole area. So we have things like that. Obviously, all the things that are happening with COVID, right, and people sort of gravitating to like global health and wellness. It's all very important and all very relevant. So I'll close this particular question by saying, if you're passionate about something, keep a hold of that passion, because you can do a lot of good with your design skills. Okay, less hearts, more questions.
Oh, we answered this already.
I see something here. Okay. Are the modules in DID more centered around creative design or a form of engineering design? Clarissa, you can handle that question.
Okay, we do more of creative design, if that's what you mean. Yeah, but for engineering, we do have some modules related to physics, but I think it's up to you to incorporate it in your own project. So we don't necessarily do a lot of engineering and calculations. It kind of really depends on the project you're working on and whether you want to incorporate those engineering knowledge. Yeah.
And I will add, I believe that we are in an idea deficit worldwide. We do not have enough great ideas out there. So I talk to my colleagues with this notion of, are we chasing technology and engineering, or is technology and engineering chasing us? Meaning, should we be focused on ideas, and then let the technology or engineering follow, or should we just address what engineering and technology can enable and then try to fit our ideas to that accordingly? So not to bring up an issue that anybody might construe as controversial, but I will say in my platforms, I'm very much focused on the creative part, the ideation part, the communication part, and then if there's an engineering component that's necessary, then we'll move to that. Because I can always pull in lots and lots of resources to help me with the engineering. But that's not the case with all of our platforms. I do have some of my peers that are very engineering focused. They're very sort of practical and pragmatically focused. So it's more of, I would say, it's more like a case-by-case basis. But I think overall, you'll see it leaning more towards creative design than you will towards engineering design.
Yeah.
I'm looking for some more questions. I think I see, okay, oh, I think this is for you. This is for you, Clarissa. I'm going to read the question verbatim. What's your favorite thing about the NUSDID family? He.
Okay, hi, Rina. Yeah, I would say it's how supportive we are towards one another, because we are a very small batch, like around 40 students per batch. So it's a very close-knit family. Also, we are very collaborative, and I'm really grateful that everyone is always willing to help others as well. So we always like share knowledge, you know, how we do things. And yeah, I think it's just a very supportive community. Yeah, that's what I love about the ID. Oh, even like with the profs, they're also very approachable, like Brian. Yeah.
Well, for me, every day is different. Not just because, you know, I teach one subject on Monday, and then on Wednesday I meet with a group of students on their thesis, and then Thursday I meet with another group of students on another topic. So there's always that sort of diversity, but there's always, you know, different challenges. There's different ways to think about it. It's, you know, opportunities to observe what students are doing in their other classes. That's always interesting. You go, oh, yeah, it's very interesting what you guys are doing. So it's always these sort of points of inspiration that you see just being in the environment at NUSDID. So as I said earlier, it's hard to be bored.
Yes. Yeah, I think just to add on a little bit to that, I think we can see even from our studio environment, like how everything is open, you know, you can kind of sense this very collaborative kind of environment that kind of lets, you know, creativity to bloom. I think, yeah, that's also one thing I love about the ID.
So you're talking about the openness of the physical environment.
Yeah. The physical environment. I think it helps to some extent.
Yeah, it's basically our studios occupy literally the entire floor.
Yes.
And the studios themselves, the individual courses are partitioned with these sound barriers, but they're on wheels. So they're movable. So sometimes they're out wide, and sometimes they're a little close, and sometimes people form small clusters. But you can walk up and down the hall, you know, walk up and down the floor. You can always see different things happening amongst the students. And again, I think because our classes, especially in year 2 and 3, are vertical in nature, you don't have that isolation of the year 2 students are over there, the year 3 students are over there, the year 4 students are upstairs, but you always get people mixed together.
Yes, that's correct.
I got a very generalized question that says, what are the requirements to join? And I would suggest that the DID website under admissions is going to give you a lot more accurate information than I can here. But you will have to, of course, meet the university's requirements. You'll have to pull together a portfolio. There will be a brief series of questions that you'll have to answer. We ask you to prepare a very quick video on your response to these questions or how you might go about a design process. All the tutors review those questions, and we come up with a short list, and then we make recommendations on our admissions. What do you remember about the admissions process?
I remember being very nervous for the interview. Okay, but I remember we were asked to watch a series of videos that was related to design. So during the interview process, they will ask you questions regarding the videos that you watch. Also, I think we were asked, okay, I'm not sure about this year because of COVID, but during my year, we were asked to quickly sketch out a design of trying to improve an existing product. So during the interview, they will also kind of briefly ask you about your design rationale and why you designed it this way. Yeah, other than that, I think it was just discussing about the portfolio that you have or anything that you have to show. Yeah.
And let me say that there's nothing wrong with being nervous.
Yes.
What you should do is channel your nervous energy into focusing on what you're good at. We're nervous too.
The interviewers?
I'm making a confession. Like we're all nervous. And that's fine. When you're nervous, I think that you'll be more alert. My recommendation is just simply take your time. That's all. This question is somewhat related also. It says, how does this course help a student overcome social anxiety and break the introverted shell's he? I don't know why we need the he, but anyway, I do want to talk about that. I would describe myself as an extrovert. Would you agree with that, Clarissa?
I strongly agree that you're an extrovert. And I'm the exact opposite.
And that's the thing. We need our introverts. We need them because there's good ideas that come from all of us. It's just that we communicate them very differently. So for instance, our introverted students, we might ask them to do more writing to express their ideas. And our extroverted, they do more sort of oral presentations to express their ideas. Well, what we're doing is we're making sure that everybody has a voice. And I think we're all very cognizant of this right now. The specific thing about social anxiety, and Clarissa already talked about it, is the environment is really supportive. We have students, they feel a lot of pressure, but we always tell them, you might not like the comments that I'm sharing with you, but the spirit of those comments is to help you get your work better. And once people sort of become more comfortable with that, they're able to sort of overcome those issues of anxiety and move their work forward. And earlier when I said about the transformation, I remember a young lady just a year ago that didn't talk very much. And she wrote notes in her presentations, and she would read her entire presentation. And then she would just use bullet points to go through her presentation. And now she's very comfortable in giving presentations. So we have to give her tools and a process that she becomes more and more comfortable. We don't expect you to do it immediately. That's why we go through this over the course of 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think just adding on to that, I remember in my first year, we had this class about ideation. And I remember one of the profs saying like, it's okay if you're an introvert and we have methods for you to kind of express your ideas as well. Because I think a lot of us introverts, we are very scared when we have an idea and then we tell people that idea and then it gets shut down. So there are, ideation methods or creative methods that can help you kind of, express yourself without, they're just methods, it will help them,
Well, the other thing is, you put your work on the wall, or you put your work down on the table, and then we create some distance between you and the work, right? So we're just looking at the work. So you don't want to think about it as, tearing down your idea. The issue is looking at the idea against a certain set of criteria and then talking to the students about it meets the criteria here, it doesn't meet the criteria here, it doesn't meet the criteria here. So the student sort of realizes like, oh, okay, I see why this might not be as successful as what I thought it might be. And that sort of, I think, pushes out that whole thing about like tearing down your idea, because we're trying to measure it against something that's objective.
Yeah.
I have another question. This one's a little tougher for me to respond to. Will everyone that applies be given a chance for the interview? And it's like, I'm short of a few RP 2020 IGP. I don't know what those abbreviations mean. That is, again, an admissions question. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. But because we are asking people to produce a video at this point in time, I can say that we are going to see all of the video submissions. So your voice will be heard. If you have a follow-up question to that, just hit the question mark icon and I'll see if I can give you more detail. Whoa, yeah, it lit up just that fast.
Wait,
oh, okay. Let's see this one. Is it possible to take DID as a minor on top of architecture as a major? I think that there is a strong possibility that that is a reality. This is some things that they're negotiating now at the provost's office. So I expect a formal announcement around that in the next 30 days.
Okay, I also didn't know about this. Apparently, I don't know a lot of things.
I would say it's for your protection.
Okay, good.
I want you to focus on your projects. Well, I think one thing that we'll have to do, one of the unanswered questions is, in some of these proposed changes, where will the cutoff be? So for instance, you being in your second year, when these things become more formalized, will you still be eligible to do these things through year 3 and 4? Or do you stay in the current system and then the incoming students, they go into the new system? We don't know that yet. Just stay tuned. Maybe one of the Instagram live sessions in the next week, maybe 2 weeks, they'll be able to answer those questions. So keep checking in. All right, I think, let's see, my phone is shaking here. Uh-oh. All right, I found another one.
Yes.
Actually, 2 more, 2 very good questions, and I think we'll wrap up after that. How busy is uni life in DID? Is it challenging to juggle DID assignments and external activities? That is a question for you.
Yes. How busy is DID? I think it's, okay, just honestly speaking, I think it's very busy. But it also depends on your time management, I think. So I know like this, people might think there's a culture of like staying overnight in studios in DID, but I really think that it depends on how well you manage your time. I do get like 6 to 7 hours of sleep every night, so I don't think that's a problem. How challenging is it to juggle assignments and external activities? I think it's still possible. I mean, I stayed in RC4. If y'all know, it's one of the residential colleges in NUS during my first and second year. I did partake in a lot of the activities there. Yeah, I think it's still possible. I know a lot of friends, like even in USP, they also join things like I don't know, volleyball or you know, CCAs, or even like dance. Yeah, so it's entirely possible. It's just how you manage your time.
All right, let me add to that. We have very, very little attrition, meaning very, very few students, once in our program, leave our program. So they're all able to manage their time, some more effectively than others. They have varying degrees of sort of commitments to external activities, but I would say it's not anything that is at a point that it starts to run people off and say, oh, I can't handle this at all. So I wouldn't concern myself with that too much, but I will be honest and straightforward. It's a lot of work because you can't really put a time limit on creative ideation. You know, sometimes it's 30 minutes and sometimes it's 3 hours. Right, but it's again, once, as Clarissa said, it depends on how well you're able to manage your time. I see. This is a great question. Will DID ever increase their intake in the future? Yes. That's the simple answer.
That's good.
This is another thing that we are working with the provost office on now, and we'll see where that goes. Check back in 30 days. And I think that might cover it for this afternoon.
Okay. Are there any more questions?
I'm going to use this as our last question.
Okay.
How will industrial design be evolving in the next few years?
Should
I can start.
First?
You want me to start?
You can start. Yeah, you can start.
You want to start?
No, you can start, Brian.
Okay. How will industrial design be evolving in the next few years? We have no idea. That's the simple answer. What I can say is we have a lot of people working in a lot of different areas. All of these areas sort of gaining traction. I think the better position to be in is to be aware and to be able to be nimble and quickly respond. I'll go back to, for instance, we have lots of students that are working in the space of interaction design or mobile app development that 15 years ago didn't exist. But we were building foundational skills that allowed people to move into those areas very, very quickly. 5 years ago, nobody really had the big concerns that we have now with COVID. And now here we are with all of these sort of remote learning tools and online sharing devices, and it happened very, very quickly. But we were prepared because we were doing explorations with remote learning and the technology was evolving at the same time. So point being, I think that it will evolve. It will evolve into a lot of different areas. We'll stay foundational so you'll be prepared. I would say the designers that are going to be best equipped for this evolution are the big picture thinkers. The people that are able to connect the dots between not only different areas of design, but how design intersects with other disciplines, such as psychology, sociology, or marketing and communication and journalism, or mechanical engineering and computer science, or business. I think that's where we're going to be moving towards in the future. Clarissa, I'll give you the last word.
Wait, answering this question or?
Any big picture thoughts, big takeaways you have for our audience?
Big picture thoughts. I would say, yeah, for those of you considering to apply to the ID, I would say just try to read up as much as you can about the course and about other courses that you're currently considering, because the last thing you want to do is to end up pursuing a course that you are actually not interested in. So just try and take your time to find out all you can about the ID. Yeah, I think that covers it.
Hi, thanks for joining us on a Saturday.
Yeah,
And thank you,
thanks
everybody.
for inviting me.
Once again, there are, of course, a few other follow-up sessions. So if you have more questions, check the schedule online, jump on that Telegram channel, and my very best to you. Thank you again for checking in. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you.